let's just stop putting foods on such a hierarchy and like creating this misconception that just this like dozen superfoods are going to save you from, everything. Just because you're adding acai to your morning smoothie doesn't undo the 3 martinis you have after work.
Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Michael Gray.
And I am Erin Green. It's
Hello,
good
Erin
to
Green.
see you.
It's
Hello.
good to see you too.
I've
How are
missed
things?
you.
Let's just keep talking over each other. I love how easily we do that. I know, it feels like it's been a long time, huh?
Well, it has. It's almost 2 weeks.
Coming up on 2 weeks. Yeah, I had,
Crazy.
as of time of recording, I had jury duty last week and this Monday, so we had to shift some things around. I had to shift a lot of things around, but we're having to double up on recording this week. So Erin and I haven't seen each other for a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Hey,
all
buddy.
these things I want to tell you.
Tell me. Let's go. Let's
We
do
have
it.
so many words to get out today.
Right? Plus a really fun topic. So
Yes, we do.
Yeah. How are things?
Very good.
Yeah.
The first thing I want to share is just this morning at my class, I go to a local gym called Pivot down here.
Mhm.
It's started by Kristen Armstrong and have been doing some strength work. Their classes are awesome. So very good stuff.
Nice.
But I met just by chatting with a friend in the locker room, I met this other lady who has come to some of my classes. Her name's Ashley. So if you're listening, Ashley, hello. And thank
Hello,
you for
Ashley.
listening. We were talking about menopause and we were talking about our menopause podcast recently. And my friend was like, I need to listen to that episode. And so Ashley comes in and she goes, I'm eavesdropping. I need to know what is this podcast and where do I find this episode? And so we got to chatting, and this morning in my class, she goes, hey, I started listening to your podcast. And I was like, which episode? And she goes, I just skipped through like a dozen of them because they're all such interesting topics. I want to listen to them all, but then I didn't want to miss out on another one. And so I was like, oh, that's really nice to hear,
Yeah.
Let us know what you think when you finally listen to an entire episode. And she said, I actually sent it to my friend in Chicago, who's a trainer and is, kind of reworking her own philosophy and where she wants to take her, her professional life and her personal life. And I said, you should listen to this. I'm really big on moderation. This is a great podcast. So thank you so much, Ashley. And I wanted to share that as at the top of the podcast, just as a little reminder to our listeners as well, that we love your feedback, positive or negative. We want to improve this podcast and we love it when you share with other people. So please do so. It would make our day.
It would make a couple days, actually.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
my day is made.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe like it might make 3 or 4 days. So
And
it's a lot of power we're giving you.
Yeah. It's like half a week, you guys.
Yeah. And if you don't do it, you're going to ruin 3 or 4 days. So think about that. Okay.
Middleish, where we were all about the guilt trip.
We're all about extremes.
Shaming our listeners.
Hey, nothing motivates like shame, right?
Yeah. So
that's my parenting philosophy. At least.
Oh God, he's kidding. He's kidding, everyone. So yeah, my day is off to a good start. And how about yours?
I'm just here. I'm exhausted after the
You're
last
breathing.
week. So
and you're dressed, at least from the
was
shoulders up, you're dressed. I
I
don't know what's going on beneath the camera.
No one usually does, including myself. Yeah, no, I'm kind of fried, to be honest, after last week. So I was on a 1st-degree murder trial. So it was like heavy duty stuff and real serious. And you got families of the defendant who are, just like hopeful and heartbroken. And you got families of the victim who are heartbroken and wanting justice, and just a real serious situation and a real big responsibility. So it just kind of took its toll. That on top of like coming home at 6:30 and then trying to be a dad and a husband and work in some capacity. So it finished yesterday on Monday, and I'm so glad it's over.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it was real heavy and real stressful, and it was just a lot, it was a long week. But so I'm kind of a little mushy in my brain, which I think is probably often the case a little bit. I'm mushier.
I am sure we can get you fired up on this topic. I'm pretty sure we can get you going. Yeah.
We'll see. But other than that, I'm great.
Okay, good. Looking forward to Thanksgiving next week, right?
Yeah, we're going camping actually for a couple of days before Thanksgiving. So that'll be super fun.
It's so funny. That's foreign to me because it's now settling into those colder temperatures here. And I can't fathom, like, camping season is over for me. So
yeah.
Have
A
fun.
little warmer here. So I don't know. It'll probably
There's
be like down to the high 40s.
It is cold for you, little hummingbird. There's a little hummingbird that just came right up to my feeder outside my window and then looked at me through the window. And it is too cold for that tiny little hummingbird. It's like the size of my thumb.
Apparently he's fine. I mean,
I guess.
I don't know.
Okay.
Son of a bitch.
Sorry. Delicate little hummingbirds. I'm tough as a coffin nail. Don't mess with me.
No cold.
All right.
Yeah.
Shall we?
Shall we? We shall. Yeah. Yeah. So we're talking about buzzwords that need to die. Buzzwords in the fitness and nutrition industry that need to die.
Yes. They need to die. And they're things that trends and fads and yes, things that we hear a lot.
Hate for a good reason. As opposed to just for bad reason, things that are, I think most of these, we have a little list, but we'll probably also just be pulling stuff out of our butts as we go along.
We're good at improving out the butt. Yeah, we can do that.
Improving out the butt. Can that be our new tagline instead of a podcast about moderation and all things? Can be Middleish. Improving out the butt.
Oh,
we might have to change our graphic too. So I'll get right on that.
I don't want to visualize what our graphic would look like with that.
Just a butt with improv coming out of it. That's how I visualize it.
So this is what happens when Michael's brain gets mushy. Okay, go ahead with your butt.
This is just what happens with Michael. Let's be honest. But I think most of these terms or phrases or whatever, or buzzwords, are on this list, or we'll talk about them because they make being a healthier person more difficult, more confusing, more frustrating, more complicated. And for probably the most part, completely unnecessarily, and so for us, it's not just like, these are annoying. They are, but it's also this but they're also problematic. And so we just want to talk through a lot of these and why they're problematic, why we don't like them, and why they need to die already. Just die already.
Yes.
Ugh. Yeah. Man,
so
how many times have you said that in your life?
Die. Probably a lot. I think
I bet you've said it a lot. I've never said it a lot because I'm just a real empathetic person.
Why would you assume I say that a lot?
I don't know. Just a feeling.
I think he thinks I'm a violent person. So, top of your list. I think I'm really struggling with my top of my list here, but I really think the first one I put down is probably the top of my list. So I'm gonna start with that one. Clean eating, clean foods, a clean diet.
Mm-hmm.
What the hell? I mean, like, we eat dirty foods. Like, you don't wash your produce. I don't know.
Depends on who you talk to, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like, clean eating, wash it. It's clean.
Like, what? I mean,
okay.
Cleaning is what I do to the, kitchen sink or like the toilet or like the floors. I don't understand.
Put some Lysol on your strawberries before you eat them.
So when I first heard this term, I remember thinking, like, my initial response actually was kind of positive. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, I get that, because my thought was, my interpretation of quote clean foods was more natural, more whole foods, less processing, less stuff added to them. But then I went to a conference. This was like early in the whole clean eating trend. Um, I went to a conference years ago, and this dietitian was like, what is this new term, clean eating? Like, anybody know what this is? And how would you describe it? And took some answers from the audience. And
Mm-hmm.
I realized in that moment, hearing all these different answers from dietitians, that there is no agreement on what this actually means. Somebody thought it was like vegetarianism. Another person thought it was if you were making your own food and you weren't buying prepackaged foods. Other people thought it was like the less processed things, similar to some thought it was like plant heavy. I mean, there were just
Mm-hmm.
all of these different interpretations. And this presenter made a really good case that we have to be careful as practitioners on how we present different dietary patterns and outlooks toward food, because she presented the case that, well, what's the opposite of clean? Dirty.
Yeah.
Does dirty have a positive or negative connotation? So what foods would you put in the quote dirty category? How is this any different from good and bad food, or being a good or bad person because of what you
Mm-hmm.
eat? And so just creating that dichotomous thinking around food can be very detrimental. And we talk about this a lot, that food relationship that suffers when this happens.
Mm-hmm.
So clean eating, clean food, clean diet is probably the top of my list of frustrations that need
Yeah.
to die.
Well, and what I always thought was interesting about it is that it wasn't anything that like people weren't already talking about. It was just like a confusing way to say it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, at least my experience, what I gathered from it, what clean eating was like less processed, more whole foods, right? And I think there was also like a healthy dose of like pesticide free or organic
Oh,
pesticides,
right.
that kind,
Non-GMO and
yeah,
yeah.
that kind of stuff. But it's like, but people were already talking about like eating more whole foods and less processed foods. And then this clean eating term came in, and it just made it like super confusing because it wasn't even clear. You know what I mean? I mean, like you're talking about, like at a conference for dietitians, like what the hell does this mean? you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like we all understand like the concepts of eating more whole foods and less processed foods. Like we're all familiar with that. We're all, I mean, not saying you agree with it or not, just we're familiar with it. And we're familiar with, people who say like we need to eat, uh, only fruits and vegetables that have been sprayed with organic pesticides and that kind, like we're all very familiar with that. But then this term comes in to supposedly describe these things, and we're like, what the hell is this? What does this mean?
Yeah.
Because it's super confusing, because like you said, the opposite of clean is dirty. And what are these foods are
Mm-hmm.
dirty? Like, are you opening a box
I
of
know.
crackers and there's like just dirt in there?
Yeah.
Like, like what's going on? It didn't even make sense. It wasn't even like a clear description of it. And it just, yeah, it was stupid from
Yeah.
the start.
And it does also create that um the hierarchy of foods, and also this
Mhm.
sort of elitism, like, oh, I only eat all organic, non-GMO, only grass fed this or that, or all of the like top end kinds of foods. And so I have
Mhm.
had clients, when I ask them, whenever somebody comes to me with that term, I want to eat cleaner, or I have a very clean diet, I'll ask them, well, what do you mean by clean? And we'll start really identifying what are the components of your dietary
Mhm.
pattern. And is that what you mean by clean? Because actually, there's lots of different ways we could phrase this. It's wholesome, it's balanced, it's plant-based, whatever. um but it is challenging to get clients to understand that there are a lot of different ways to eat well,
Mhm.
and being quote clean with your diet can mean 1,000 different things to different people. And you don't have to buy the most expensive because of the way it's labeled, or because of the way it's processed, um, in order to have a nutritious and wholesome diet. So
Yeah.
that's probably one of that's my big one.
Yeah.
Clean food,
Yeah.
clean eating.
That's your big one, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's your goop.
That's my
the cherry on
the
top.
cherry on top. If you have not listened to our celebrity hacks decoded episode, gosh, that was done last year at some point.
Yeah.
I think it was. We talked about Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop. Go back and listen to that episode.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
We'll look at the number while you go,
yeah.
Michael.
You got it? Are you
I'll
doing
pull it
it?
up. Go ahead.
Okay. So for me, I don't remember if I put this one on here or you did, but if you did, I'm going to steal it because it's if it's not my top, it's right there. Just the whole top, detox and cleanses.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I don't even know. I'm trying to remember, like when I first started training 13 years ago, I'm trying to remember when detoxes kind of came on the scene. And I don't know if they were big then or a little before, if it was a little bit after, but do you remember like kind of when that all started?
I seem to remember something about like the cabbage soup diet and lemon water kinds of things somewhere in college. Yeah. Somewhere in my college years, right before I started getting into nutrition. So maybe around like, early 2000s was when I really heard most of it. So
yeah. Okay. So maybe it was a little before because I don't know. I've been training for 13 years, so a little before that, but so just, I remember like when I first started training and talking with clients and, them somewhere in there bringing up, detoxes and cleanses and is this a good idea? And it was this idea that like, okay, if I stop eating quote unquote bad foods and processed foods, and I start eating more like fruits and vegetables and less food, like a smaller volume of food, then that will get the crap out of my body and sort of flush it out, right? Literally.
It will get crap out of your body.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you will
your body is good at expelling crap.
Yeah. Are you looking at me in particular? That felt like
I think everybody's body
there.
should be pretty good at expelling crap. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael says a lot of crap.
Everybody poops.
And that was sort of the more tame version of it, and then there were versions like the cabbage soup or, the lemon water, or, I just talked to someone recently who did, I can't remember what the name of it was. But it was a 30-day, essentially lemonade diet, like lemon water. And there was like a tea. I think it was like a whole program thing to detox. And now detoxes are like everywhere, right? Like there's detox tea and pills and plans and, starvation, like diets wrapped up as detoxes.
Right.
And the idea is, well, the marketing plan is, I don't know if this is necessarily the idea, but the marketing plan is that your body is full of toxins, right? Like it just has all these toxins in it from, depending on who you talk to, from the foods we eat, from the pesticides we ingest, from the air we breathe, from, the metals that we exist around and, the Tupperware we put in the microwave and store our food in. It's just,
from your laundry detergent,
right? From your yoga mats, and just, it's everywhere. And so we have these toxins that are just built up in our bodies, and that we need to get rid of them. And it's making this wildly stupid assumption that the body has no ability to do that on its own, right? Like we've got these toxins and the body's just like, please do something. We're dying here. I don't know what to do. Like, God help us. Take that diarrhea tea, please, so we can, be healthier. And which is funny because like, okay, what did people do before this stupid idea came up, right? Like how were people in any way healthy before all this stuff? But the reality is like, if you've got pores and you've got a liver and you've got kidneys, like your body's handling it just fine. Like your body your body has a system for removing toxic things. Like it has a whole system that it's had since we were whatever we are, right? Like as long as we've been what we are, it's had a system that did not need diarrhea tea or stupid pills or cabbage soup. And the body's really good at this, right? Like it has a built-in system to remove these things from our body, to filter it and shuttle it in the right places. And I mean, that's why we poop and pee. There's things the body's like, nope, we don't need this or want this, so let's get it out. That's when we sweat, we get rid of things that the body doesn't need. It has a natural built-in system to expel things that are not healthy or not needed for the body. And that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Your body will do. The only thing I'll add to that, because I love diarrhea tea.
Well, right. That's what those things make you do.
Yeah,
they make you shit your brains out.
I know.
Like, does this seem healthy to you?
Well, you'll be getting rid of a lot of stuff. Let me
just
tell
go
you
get
that.
the flu instead. Like it's cheaper.
The only thing I'll add to that is, as long as you are feeding your body the right kinds of things so that your kidneys are functioning properly, so that your digestive system is moving smoothly, so that your body can handle all of those things. I did listen to a really good, at a virtual conference this last spring, a good review of what does a detox dietary pattern actually look like. And this dietitian went through all of this research on, these are the, the micro minerals and the different things that your body actually needs to function properly with your liver, your kidneys, your digestive system, all of these things. And it really came down to, I mean, sure, there are some very specific foods in, again, clinical settings where this dietitian was working that, hey, you're deficient in this, we need to replace it. But in general, guys, just eat a balanced diet, get lots of color in there, get plenty of fiber,
water,
eat well,
move your body,
drink some water and move, and make sure you sleep, because that's how your body basically detoxes your brain and gets rid of all that stuff. So and but the diarrhea teas are not necessary. So let's,
I mean, unless you're into that thing, but yeah, they're not necessary.
No, thanks.
In fact, I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was John Berardi who started Precision Nutrition, which we've talked about before. He did I don't remember at all. I don't remember if he did a few different ones or did one for a certain amount of time, just as like, hey, I'm going to do these detoxes. So I've experienced personally. And he wound up in the hospital. Oh my God. Being very sick because he was incredibly dehydrated, right? Like, because what we don't need to do is like flush massive amounts of fluids out of our body at one time. Like this is not a good idea. Yeah. Or maybe he had to go to the doctor. It was something. He wound up real sick, from just doing this detox protocol. I don't remember if it was a product or a protocol or what, but they can also be really dangerous. And again, completely unnecessary.
Yeah. No, thank you. Okay. Another one of my top buzzwords that needs to die is guilt-free. When we're talking about food, oh my gosh, this one is a major trigger for me. I see it in advertising. I see it on tons of, fitness websites and diet websites. I see it as, categorizing a food as guilt-free, or that you can eat this food guilt-free by knowing that it's whatever, you burned off the calories ahead of time, or it's a type of sugar that you're, somehow is purported to be healthier, or I mean, who freaking knows? But this is a major problem for me, because food should not come with a side of guilt ever. I realize there are a lot of people out there with a history of disordered eating, a history of trauma, chronic dieters that have told themselves over and over that I, feel guilty for eating certain foods because they, quote, shouldn't, or that's a bad food, or that's a dirty food, or whatever it is we tell ourselves. The guilt, the whole guilt-free phrase just precipitates that whole thought process that if I can be guilt-free in this moment, that means that actually I should feel guilty in other moments. Exactly. And that's something that I've struggled with. And so I know it reinforces that belief. So that's another one that I have struggled with. And I've seen, oh my gosh, you guys, there's tons of marketing out there especially with the new food lines and trends that are paleo friendly, or again, they have different types of sugar in them that are labeled differently. So it's not just standard sugar. It's some like evaporated cane juice, from the Amazon that supposedly has all of these healthful properties. And so now it's guilt-free if you have that product versus, just your standard sugar. It boggles my mind that these, food companies and these practitioners in the health and wellness industry have to label things as guilt-free. Like, let's just work on that whole, every food should be guilt-free. Let's work on that core instead of labeling certain foods as being okay to eat because you won't feel guilty.
Right. Like they're inherently something to feel guilty about. Yeah. And that's the thing. I think a lot of these, it's problematic with a lot of these is not what they're saying, but what they're also like implying. You know what I mean? Like if there's, like you said, if there's guilt-free foods, then there are foods you should feel guilty about. That's not a stretch of the imagination. That's
right.
That's what's being said, and when we start, I mean, God, we already have so much stacked against us, as far as confusion and stuff. Like it's already so unnecessarily, so freaking complicated, that now when we start, like, if it's not guilt-free, then it's guilt-full, right? Like it's full of guilt, and these are our options. So are you going to eat something that's going to, help you be guilt-free, or something that's going to make you feel guilty? Like these are your options. And when we do that, it's like you talked about before with clean foods, dirty foods. Like, well, we only have two options now. And one is clearly the better choice, and one is clearly a terrible choice. So what are you going to do? Are you going to eat like someone who cares about themselves? Or you're going to be a piece of shit and eat this shit and fill your body with it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that's just the messaging. And I think a lot of times people don't get the messaging that's being placed upon them by these seemingly simple, helpful, innocent things. Is they're really detrimental. When we say, oh, this is guilt-free, then all the other stuff you're eating, you should feel really terrible about yourself for eating. That's the message. And it's not as right in your face, as some things, but it's 100% what's being conveyed and communicated.
Yeah. And I think you get to the core of why these buzzwords are so triggering and so detrimental. There's no room for nuance and discussion and what they actually mean by saying that, by saying that you can eat this food guilt-free. The real work would be diving into what is behind some of the guilt and shame around eating certain foods, the story you tell yourself about those foods, maybe your history with some of those foods and your body and eating in general and coping mechanisms. Then we get into all the like psychology of the food relationship. So it goes a lot deeper than that. So if you see one of these buzzwords or marketing terms or phrases that just kind of like hits you in an emotional way, because that's what advertising is designed to do, is to like hit on your emotions and get a response. If you have that reaction, or if you feel like, oh yeah, that hits me in the feels, sit with that for a second and think about it and ask yourself where some of the nuance is in that messaging. What could be another perspective or another way to look at this? It's challenging how these words have become so prolific in the diet and fitness industry and the food industry that it is challenging to talk through this stuff with clients and help them see that Middleish part of it.
It really is, because I mean, we've talked about this with like, I don't know what we did. We did something about like influencers, right? And like we've talked around this a little bit, but there's some of these things that just, for whatever reason, they become adopted as just fact. You know what I mean? Like adopted as like truth for how we live healthier lives. Like you have to eat clean. You got to, I mean, there's all these things. And when we take those on and we take ownership of them, we adopt them into our lives, like they get roots, even if we felt terrible and stressed out and we couldn't do it for very long, we still have this like, yeah, but it's the thing I should do kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
You
once
tell
we're in that
yourself that's the
space,
right way. Yeah. This
right?
is the
Because
way.
all these people are saying it. So obviously it's right. Right. Um, and then undoing that really becomes a burden and a chore and a real task that I think for most people, they have to be committed to diving in and doing some rough work, just to be honest. Like a lot of times unlearning some of this stuff and and trying to step away from real restrictive thoughts and approaches and whatever, and into things that are longer term and more sustainable and healthier mentally, emotionally, physically, all these things. It's not easy at all. And there's a lot. In fact, I just talked with someone this morning about like just terrified of potatoes, because there's been so much, and it's like, I get it. I 100% get it, because there's so much information that says like, you should be terrified of potatoes. Don't you dare ever eat one again, because carbs are so awful. And looking at like stepping away from that long held belief of, I can't eat these. Like, these are terrible for me, into like building them into part of your routine. That's not a small task. It's not just like, oh, I can eat potatoes. Okay, cool. I'll eat potatoes. It's way more than that. And so these things, they shape how we view ourselves and our relationship to food, and they shape and determine our ability to move into healthier places and how difficult it's going to be. These are really problematic.
Yeah, that's so funny that you brought up potatoes, because I'm actually shooting a potato commercial tomorrow. So y'all, Erin likes potatoes, and they are nutritious, and don't be afraid of them. In fact, don't fear any food. Our hope is that we can help you not fear food in general. And you are absolutely right, Michael, that undoing those food beliefs and these things that have been built up for years of conditioning and media messaging, and even messages that people get from their healthcare providers or their friends or their parents about certain foods. Like my mom, I had a conversation with her this past summer where she, was wanting to eat better. She was wanting to lose weight. She had all these kinds of ideas of how she wanted to do it. And she's like, but I get tired of salad. And I'm like, well, you can eat lots of other foods besides salad. And we had this conversation about how, she's like, well, I like this kind of salad dressing, but it has a lot of sugar in it. And I'm like, what's a lot, Mom? Like, what do you mean? And we really kind of dug into some of this. And I was like, she started going down kind of the rabbit hole of like, well, yeah, but it actually doesn't taste good. These fat-free dressings and blah, blah, blah. So we got into really digging into these food beliefs and where they came from. And finally, we just both in unison were like, food shouldn't suck. It should not taste terrible. You shouldn't feel like you're being punished every time you try and eat healthfully, and every time you sit down to, and that's why people get so frustrated with diet plans and fad diets and different things. I mean, it might seem all bright and shiny. Yeah, I'm going to start this thing and I'm going to thrust myself into this world of health, and I'm going to eat this way and follow these rules. At some point, it's not going to feel great anymore. It's going to suck, and the food isn't going to taste good. And you're going to wonder, like, is this my life now? Like, where's the end game? So we've talked about this before. This is why it's so hard to dive into some of that food relationship stuff with just the simple, dichotomous messaging that we get from the food and diet industry. So there you go.
Well, and I think just to piggyback on that real quick, then we can move on. But I think a lot of this work, when we're looking at working on our relationship with food and with ourselves, there are a lot of parallels to therapy. If you go through therapy, and it's looking at beliefs about you or something that you've held for a long time that are inaccurate, ways you view yourself or the world or food or your relationship with your parents, whatever it is, they're all similar in that we have this saying that we have an assumption or a place that we operate from that is not a strong foundation or not a healthy foundation. And so you got to break that apart and you got to rebuild something, and that's why I think a lot of times it's really hard for people to do that work, is because it's work. And a lot of times to do this work, you're going to have to face some things that just aren't fun to face, you know? I mean, it might be, you know, like just really awful negative messaging about your body and food when you were a kid that you grew up with, you know, messaging from a parent, or some really hard things that happened, you know, through school years. I mean, it's a lot of times it really requires you to look at things that are not easy to look at, and then address them. And they're not easy to address, you know? And I think that's a lot of the reason why it's like, yeah, but just tell me like how many carbs I need to eat.
Yeah. Just
you know
give me the guilt-free version of this cookie. I just want to eat the guilt-free version and give myself permission not to feel guilty.
Yeah. Should I drink more diarrhea tea?
Yeah.
You know, like, like, no, because I don't want to do that. And what's funny about this is, where does true health lie? Does it true health lie in changing some actions, regardless of what we're talking about, outside of fitness and nutrition, just in all ways? Does it lie in just like, I just, you know, I'm going to adopt these few little things? Or does it require to undo how you've been doing things and build a whole new framework and pattern, routines and behaviors and beliefs? It requires a ladder, and the ladder's a lot more work, but it's the only way we really develop anything that's truly healthier.
Yeah.
You know,
we're teaching you to fish here, not giving you a fish. We're teaching you to fish. Along the same lines of what you just said, the things we are taught by, you know, the media or our parents or just our environment with food in our bodies. One of the other things that kind of piggybacks onto guilt-free is anything about earning your food or earning your calories. You earn food by being alive, period. Yeah. End of story. You earn food by being alive. Now, I understand that when our bodies move more and when our heart rate goes up and when we have, you know, more muscle mass, yes, our caloric demand goes up. We have to support that physical activity. However, it's not accurate for people to whittle down their calories into this little box and say, well, this is exactly what I get if I don't do any physical activity. But if I do, then I can earn the right to actually honor my hunger and to eat foods that sound good to me and to enjoy this social gathering and have a piece of birthday cake because, you know, I actually went for that run. So I quote, earned it. Having a contingency on eating with every opportunity you get, like every time you're confronted with that, you know, one of these like unclean, dirty foods or, you know, guilt-ridden foods, if you always have a contingency on that, man, that is going to be exhausting for you. I'm just saying. So if you can really embrace that, I have earned food simply by being alive today, and really allow yourself unconditional permission to eat and be satisfied, that will go a very long way in your food relationship.
And then there's the flip side of it that we have to pay, you know, like, I mean, this is the time of year where we start seeing those stupid effing memes about like, oh, did you eat
do this many burpees to work off that
stuffing?
pie?
Yeah. Did you have stuffing? Then do 30 burpees. Did you eat a piece of turkey? Then do this, which first of all is so stupid and so inaccurate. Anybody who makes those or in earnest puts those out there has no clue what they're talking about. Let me just be really clear. They do not understand how nutrition and exercise work. That's just not the way it works. Beyond that, like this idea that if we eat more, you know, something decadent or more volume or higher calories, that then we have to undo it. It's, I love you all very much. Let me say this to start. Okay. Thank you for listening.
Here it goes.
But I'm going to be really honest here. And I don't blame you. Okay. But also go back and listen to our metabolism episode because this will help a lot. But if we think that, oh, I ate 500 extra calories, so I know I now need to go burn 500 extra calories, you do not in any way understand how metabolism works. It is not that simple. It is not a simple process of solely how much you eat and solely how much you move. There are so many things that go into determining this. And so to feel like, because you know what happens when you eat more food? Your metabolism raises to compensate for the food you ate.
Yes.
Right.
I'm just looking back. Yep. That's episode 48, Metabolism Explained.
Okay. Seriously. Like I think we did a good job breaking it down and explaining it. Episode 48, go listen to it. But that's not how it works. And again, so if you have a trainer or a nutritionist or whatever, who's promoting these kind of things, they are yelling in your face, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'd like you to think I do, but I don't. And I'm going to keep trying to fool you. Okay. Because it's not how it works. It's just not how the body operates. And beyond that, what are you communicating to yourself mentally, emotionally, and physically about food? Like, it's an enemy. It's something you have to continually combat. Right. And beyond that, like, do you have any ideas how many extra calories you consumed? Do you have how many calories you consumed the day before or the day before that or the day before that? What if you go 7 over? Now, do you need to do like 7, burn 7 calories? Like the idea is just, once we start picking it apart, it's ridiculous. It's stupid. And it makes no sense.
People get caught up in the minutia of the numbers and that whole earning. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, what does it mean to earn certain foods? And does anybody, okay, I'm sure there are some extreme cases where people earn things like an apple or like some carrots. But in general, when people talk about earning calories or earning food, it's usually earning highly palatable, enjoyable foods. It's earning the mashed potatoes and gravy. It's earning the pizza. It's earning the dessert. So I think that is another key in unraveling that whole earning food thing. Which foods are we talking about here? And how many calories? And how do you know exactly how many calories you just burned doing this activity? And I have to say, to honor the full circle of this point about earning food and calories, I have seen the opposite happen where people start, working out. Maybe they come and they're like, hey, I want to get healthier. So they set these goals, they start working out, they start making these changes, and their food relationship is still in this wonky place where all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, I get to reward myself with these foods. And I get to have a quote cheat day, or I get to, I just worked really hard in boot camp. And so I'm going to go out to dinner. And what happens is when you still have that underlying belief that you need to earn the food, you end up rewarding yourself with food. And guess what? It's far easier to consume 500 calories in one go than it is to burn off those 500 calories in, if all things are equal and we are measuring these things precisely. That's just the fact of it, that it really is a lot easier to, overdo it when we're talking about a calorie deficit or surplus. So I've seen both ends of that, where people are super restrictive. I won't eat this unless I earn it. And then people get too liberal on the other side of, I earned it, so I'm going to reward myself with all this food and just undo everything they did. Right. So,
yeah. And to be clear, I completely agree with Erin, and it was a great point. And just to back up for what I was saying, I don't blame anybody if they don't understand this. I really don't. But but if you're listening now, take it upon yourself to understand this. Take it upon yourself to educate yourself about, like, okay, how does this work? Right? Because if we're always just relying on someone else to tell us, there are a lot of people who are going to be telling you a lot of things that are just wildly unhealthy and damaging. That the industry is full of this messaging and products and supplements and marketing and individuals. It's full of it. Some of them unknowingly, some of them very knowingly. Okay. So I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not giving anybody a hard time about this, but it's time to maybe do some research, time to do some looking, some learning, some reading about how this stuff actually works. And then just to kind of piggyback on your point, Erin, if we're exercising, then we get to reward, or if we're eating and then we have to punish, right? Like make up for. What we're doing is we're putting ourselves in a relationship with food where no matter what or how we eat, there's a cost to it.
Yeah.
Right? There's a physical movement cost to it. And I have to either make up for it or earn it or whatever. And once we get into that place, again, we are getting into a very unhealthy relationship with our body and ourselves and with food. And we are digging this hole that is an ugly, deep, dark hole to get out of. As soon as we start having to think about the cost here, what's the cost, as opposed to what is this in my life, right? Like, is this food I enjoy? Does it taste good? Does it make me feel good, either physically or emotionally? Is it, am I celebrating this with people? Am I eating this where I just get to experience the flavors and textures, and I'm not worried about like, but how do I make up for it? How do I make up for it? Because as soon as you do that, you're taking all your enjoyment with food away. And as soon as all your enjoyment with food goes away, we're in a really, really nasty place. Yeah. That's hard to get out of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Do you have another one that you want to hit on? I mean, I have lots listed here.
Erin's got lots. But yeah, let's do like an exercise one. So let's talk about HIIT. Let's talk about high intensity interval training. Okay. So I'm going to say that again. High intensity interval training. These words are really key to this concept. And they're words that just about everybody pays no attention to. Okay. So like, I see this all the time, like if you go like in the search section of Instagram, you'll see like all these influencers and trainers doing quote unquote, here's your HIIT workout for the day. And what that almost like 99% of the time means is usually a variety of body weight movements, right? Like jumping lunges or jumping squats or push-ups or, jumping jacks, just whatever, right? Plank. Usually it's body weight movements. Somehow this has become synonymous with body weight movements. I don't know how. And for a set amount of time, like 30 seconds and then 30 seconds. And right, you just do this whole thing. And it's typically something that's going to be real challenging, right? It's typically something that people who are very fit are able to do, but it's still a challenge. So for the average person who hasn't been working out longer at all, it's going to be super challenging, right? And that seems to be the underlying theme, is like what HIIT means is what they're saying. What HIIT means is like, you're just going to be destroyed afterwards, right? Like you're just going to be zapped. And what HIIT really is high intensity interval training. And so what that means is high intensity means you're going like balls to the wall, right? Okay. Interval means there's intervals. Okay.
Right.
So that means there's high intensity
for a specific
balls to the
time
wall for a very specific amount of time, and then nothing or virtually nothing for a very specific amount of time. These are intervals. We go very high intensity, very low intensity, and both are set for a very specific amount of time. And so we're up and down, up and down, up and down. What you don't see with most HIIT workouts on Instagram is that interval piece or the high intensity piece. Because if I'm on my 7th exercise that I've been doing for 30 seconds, what's my intensity look like? It's not intense. I'm dragging ass. You know what I mean? It's like, oh God. Oh, my reps are slow, and my form's getting shoddy, and it just intensity is going like this. And that's not the point. I mean, I'm not saying that these workouts are inherently bad or that they're not worth doing or that there's not benefit from them, but they're not HIIT at all in any way. And maybe it's unimportant, but it drives me freaking crazy because this is not what this is. Quit calling it HIIT when it's just cardio.
This was an interesting one for me because I was like, oh, really? This is one of those buzzwords that gets on your nerves. But now I can see why. It's the whole idea that it's the misconception around the actual intent of what HIIT is. So if I'm hearing you correctly, HIIT would be those high intensity intervals that you can repeat. You have to have enough rest that you can go repeat and get up to that really high max effort again with proper form and do the amount of time that your interval is, and then have enough rest that you can like come down and recover and get your muscles, regrouped and catch your breath. Right. And then go at it again versus continual, just digging that hole to where all of a sudden you're barely getting your feet off the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so, and I'm glad you said that, because I didn't realize that I was implying this, but I'm not implying that HIIT in and of itself is a buzzword that I would like to get rid of, because I think high intensity interval training has massive benefits. I really do. If it's actually high intensity interval training.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah,
so
I think it's the misunderstanding.
Exactly. People are like, yeah, I did a HIIT workout. What'd you do? No, you just did some cardio, like just until you were exhausted. That's what you did. And like I said, sure, that's great. Awesome. Do it. And so maybe this is more for me. I know a few other trainers who this just drives crazy. It's like, let's see, I don't even know what I could subscribe it to. I don't know, but it's the wrong thing. It's not the right thing. And again, for me, in my opinion, when you have a trainer saying this is a HIIT workout and it's this thing, it's me going like, you are just telling us you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think this is the theme of this buzzwords that need to die, is that buzzwords are often misunderstood. They're marketing terms. They have no room for nuance, and they really employ either misinformation or dichotomous thinking to get people on board. So yeah, that was a good one. Keeping with the fitness sort of theme here, I have one about our bodies on social media that drives me crazy. So thigh gap is a buzzword or a term that drives me crazy. And it has, I think it has probably lost a little bit of popularity. It was super popular a few years ago, but it seems like it's kind of gone down. And now fit thick or thick fit, whichever one you want, are now the new term. So it's like and if you get on Instagram, so thick fit, the hashtag thick fit on Instagram has 1.1 million posts with that hashtag. And if you go on Instagram and you look at that hashtag and what are the photos, now I understand the intent behind this. It's to encourage particularly women to embrace a quote thicker body, a bigger body. Doesn't have to be, it's like the opposite of the thigh gap and that ultra skinny look. It still is precipitating this body image dissatisfaction that we see a lot on social media. So if you go and you look at thick fit or fit thick, those hashtags on social media, you will see all these images of women with huge booties, tiny little waist, really lean, maybe very voluptuous curves with, in really tight outfits. And again, it's very much like just putting a new body trend out there. Oh, well, this is trending now. I understand the intent behind it. Like, okay, let's embrace, a different kind of body than just that trending little stick thin, skinny thigh gap body.
Right.
Y'all, if we're focused on body shape and what the ideal body is, or what's trending, or what's perfect right now, or what you want to look like, it's a road to unhappiness and body dissatisfaction. So it's really frustrating for me to hear those terms when I hear them, like in a locker room, or when I hear people talk about them, especially women, it's just like, oh my gosh, here we go on the body dissatisfaction train. And social media is really good at promoting this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm going to regret this. I don't think so. But like, can we just shut up about what our bodies look like? Like, can we just knock it off already? Like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, why do we have to constantly have this ideal that changes throughout history and society, right? Like this would never have been popular 20 years ago, right? This whole thick fit, that would not have been a thing 30 years ago. And can we just stop talking about what our bodies look like and start talking about how do I feel? How do I move? How does my body function? How do I think about my body? What's my relationship with it? Because like Erin said, you're exactly 1,000% right. All this is doing is it's just putting a new ideal out there, right? Well, you know what? We really like this for a while, but now if you're this, now you're superior.
Yeah. You can't win. You can't win.
No one
I
can.
mean, it might be your year for some reason if you have this genetic predisposition to a big booty or like, a larger lower half than your upper half, whatever it is. Hey, hooray, it might be your year on social media if everybody's saying that this is the trending body. What happens next year when all of a sudden there's something else that's trending?
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
it is.
I'd scrolled through maybe 30 or 40 real quick, just right now. And just it's like all it's different from other influencers is these people, I only saw women, are like have more curves than maybe is like you would think about with the traditional real fit body. That's it. Like bigger boobs or a bigger butt or bigger hips. They're still like incredibly lean,
super lean,
right? Probably still engaging in wildly unhealthy behavior, probably are a basket case in their brain because like they've got to maintain all about how this I look. Image. Yeah. And it's like, that's still unhealthy. I don't give a shit. Like it's still unhealthy, and that's the thing. When we start perpetuating very specific body types for the people who have it, they've got to maintain it at all costs. Unhealthy. For everyone else, I got to get there at all costs. Very unhealthy. And so when we start idealizing bodies and shapes and saying this is better than that, it's bad for everyone. Everyone. We think it's a good thing for the people who have it. It's not. It's just as awful, maybe worse. I don't know, for them, because now it's like I have to maintain this at all costs. And when we start doing things at all costs, we start doing really unhealthy things.
Right. And I think there's a important distinction between being comfortable in and proud of your body and being grateful for your body and what it does and celebrating how you take care of your body. I think there's an important distinction between that and having this ideal of a body size or shape or body image. 100%. Those are different things. Practicing body appreciation and, even posting a picture of yourself because I've worked hard and this is how I feel. And this is, I'm proud of how I look. As long as it's not hinging on because it conforms to the beauty ideal, I think that is the critical piece there. So that's why thigh gap and these hashtag buzzwords drive me crazy because they trend, they catch fire, and then it breeds that body dissatisfaction for a lot of people.
Yep. Which, I mean, again, we already struggle with that enough. Like, do we need more things to make it more difficult? Yeah. I don't like it.
You want to do one more? Is there another one?
I'll look at this list here. I do superfoods.
Let's do superfoods.
You want to top it off with superfoods?
Let's top it off.
It off.
The cherry. Oh, by the way, the cherry on top of the mountain of bullshit that we talked about with Goop was episode 34. So it's way, way back there.
Was this 77 we're doing, I think?
Yeah. Wow. Something like that. I know. Look at how
far
we've come. So superfoods. All right. So this is an interesting one because I actually just read an article yesterday by a dietitian talking about superfoods. And, it really got me questioning like, well, is this really that bad of a buzzword? I think the reason it gets to me, there's a couple things. First of all, there is no agreed upon like set of criteria to make something a superfood. There really isn't,
it's just made up.
So we hear that. Yeah. So we hear that buzzword. And again, it kind of goes into that clean eating or guilt-free or whatever, that halo effect that we get on certain foods.
Superiority.
Yes. I think that's why it gets me. And then secondly, whenever I see these superfood lists, I'm like, but what about, like you said, dry beans.
Yeah, we were talking about this before. We were talking about superfoods. I'm like, it's a superfood. Dry beans are a superfood. Spinach is a superfood because these superfoods cost so much. They're so expensive, and it's like, you don't need to break the bank.
Something really basic like oranges, or just some apples. Like, I mean, those aren't
You know what I
super
think is
because they're not
superfood?
exotic.
I think gummy bears are a superfood. And I mean, I'm saying,
They're
yeah,
super
because I
good.
really enjoy them. I love gummy bears, and I'm happy when I eat them. Isn't that super?
I want to
I
make a
think that's pretty
t-shirt
super,
that says all foods are super and has some
right?
like corny cartoon on it,
Yeah.
because it's, yeah, we run into this all the time. And that article that the dietitian was explaining, that superfoods have a health benefit above and beyond just the nutrients that make up the food. Okay, so similar to a category called functional foods, which is actually has a definition and is a food category that talks about, something like fiber. I mean, fiber has a host of benefits aside from just being this, fibrous substance. It helps with digestion, it helps with cholesterol, can help with gut health, all these other things. So I understand the idea behind superfoods, but why would acai be on a superfood list, but blueberries aren't, or strawberries aren't, or watermelon isn't? Like, why do we have to place this hierarchy that steers people toward usually kind of exotic foods, sometimes more expensive than others? A lot of people don't have access to some of these foods. And so we're just kind of creating that impression that, like you said, there's some foods that are superior to others.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really what it comes down to is solely marketing. Because if someone is like, hey, it's a superfood, strawberries. Have you heard of strawberries? Have you had strawberries? Be like, yeah, whatever. But if it's like, oh, this is from the jungle in Brazil, and it has antioxidants, which so many foods have antioxidants. We're like, oh, and it can fight cancer, which so many foods fight cancer, like goji tomato, right? And then I haven't heard of this, and I can't get this just in my grocery store. Like, oh, this is a special thing. This must be one of those magic bullets. Dr. Oz recommends it. Okay. Yep. Here's my $50 for these 10 berries that are going to do nothing for me. Awesome. And I think that's a lot of it, is it's easy to market when we haven't heard about it, when we're not familiar with it, and when it's not readily available. Then it feels special. Then it feels like, oh yeah, this is a superfood. Because you're right. I've never heard of a superfood like perpetuated by influencers or Dr. Oz or whatever. That's something common that we grew up eating, even though like there's so many quote unquote superfoods that we eat all the time. I mean, all fruits and vegetables, anything. Yeah.
Anything.
Okay.
Anything.
Shut up.
I know. I'll see things like spinach on there. I'll see things like spinach on there, but then, lettuce gets such a bad rap. I don't know how many times I've had clients say to me, oh, well, I like lettuce and I know it doesn't have anything in it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It has lettuce actually has nutritional value. Iceberg lettuce, people, has nutritional value. You do not have to replace all of your iceberg lettuce with these, dark leafy greens. Sure. Do we want people to eat more dark leafy greens? Yes. But it doesn't mean that just because they're on the superfood list that you can't have this other food and that there's no nutritional value in that food. So I think that's where people, it seems to muddle the waters again with just understanding that all foods fit in a dietary pattern, and that there are foods that are affordable and come in cans or packages in the frozen aisle, or that you can just, get at your local grocery store for cheap, that are actually super and have really great health benefits.
Well, and then again, it perpetuates this idea that the only foods that are worth eating are ones that are highly nutritious and low calorie, versus like, what about the foods that you enjoy and that feel good and that make your eating plan patterns more sustainable? I think those are just as super. I think they're just as important, because like we've talked about before, if you're only eating stuff you hate, how long is that going to last? If you can't eat things you enjoy, how long are you going to keep eating that way? So don't these foods like ice cream and, gummy bears and cookie, don't they have value and purpose and place? And isn't it a super thing that they help you, one, enjoy food and maybe more like, what's the word? like, I don't know, maybe higher ways, like they have more flavor explosion or whatever, you know what I mean? And that help you stick to a healthier eating plan. Isn't that a super thing? That seems like a really important, valuable thing. But
yeah, having a nutritious, sustainable dietary pattern is super.
Yep.
So do that.
Super duper.
That was good. I feel like we just had a cleanse. I feel detoxed now.
I feel a little better, actually. I feel like I got some frustration out from last week.
You were very animated. This was good. We got your brain firing.
Therapeutic.
So, meeting in the mundane, mine was on Sunday, and Matt and I are really into football. So Sundays are kind of a, lazy watch football kind of day. And Matt happens to really be into Formula One. And there was a Formula One race that he really wanted to watch, a couple hours long. So I was like, okay, sure, do your Formula One thing. And I really didn't have anything to do. I mean, I know that sounds funny, but it forced me to kind of be bored and to invent things to how am I going to spend my time? So I would do, and not work. That was the thing. Like, you cannot sit at your computer and just dive into work, Erin. You need to just allow yourself to be bored. So I colored a coloring page. I vacuumed the stairs. What else? I played with the cat. I just did all these really random things that were just like, at the end of the day, I was like, I didn't really accomplish all that much today, but honestly, it felt really good just to be kind of bored. And I know we hear this with kids all the time, like, allow them to be bored, turn off the screens. You don't have to be entertained all the time. Oh, I played solitaire. Like, I just had this, couple hours where I I guess I'll do this now. And it was actually really refreshing. So
nice.
That was mine.
I like it. Yeah. I'd say you accomplished a lot, just not in traditional terms. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Nice. For me, so Saturday, we went up to Kathleen's dad's, who lives about an hour and 10 minutes north of here, to celebrate his birthday. And the girls all stayed. I came back Saturday night and had the night to myself, and they came back like later Sunday afternoon. So Sunday morning, I had my cup of coffee, and it was beautiful out, like 65 and sunny and a nice little breeze. And so I just took my coffee and sat on the back patio, uninterrupted, just quiet, just enjoyed my coffee, experienced like the sun and the breeze, just, the sound of the leaves kind of lightly moving, and just had this nice, like 15, 20 minutes of just doing nothing and just really just being in the moment, which is hard, I mean, when you're working, you got kids, and it's hard to be in the moment a lot of times. And just to sit there and just experience the simplicity of what was happening was magnificent.
I love it. That's so nice.
Really nice. Yeah.
I'm picturing the sun moment. And just the nice breeze. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah. It was super.
It was super. Very good. But ching.
Oh my God.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Michael, for making my day, because I missed you. I missed chatting with you.
Thank you too. Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
I like how if it's like 2 weeks, we're like, oh,
where's my buddy?
That's good, right? That means we like each other and we like doing this. That's good.
Yeah, this is good. Yeah. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will catch you next time.
Bye-bye.